Just when you didn't think it could get any better, huh?
Here we go.
Here's the problem. What started as a simple story about street racers and undercover cops has evolved into a globe-trotting spy thriller with superhuman feats. So where did it all start going wrong? What if Paul Walker hadn't tragically passed away during the filming of Furious 7? With only about half of the movie shot at the time of Walker's death, the filmmakers were forced to radically alter not just the ending, but the entire trajectory of the franchise. What's often overlooked is how his passing changed the course of subsequent sequels, scrapping plans that would have seen the return of past villains teaming up against Dom and Brian's crew, and even potentially introducing us to Brian's long-lost father. But the story goes deeper than that. From its humble beginnings as a street racer film to becoming a global action phenomenon, the Fast and Furious franchise has undergone numerous transformations, some planned, others forced by circumstances. So let's find the answer to the burning question: what went wrong with Fast and Furious? But before we drift further, a quick ask to please click the subscribe button to stay updated on our latest videos. It's one small click for you, but a huge deal for us. Thank you. Part 1. The Origins. Our story begins in 2001 with young Paul Walker and an up-and-coming Vin Diesel. The concept was simple: an undercover cop infiltrates the world of street racing. It was Point Break with cars, inspired by a Vibe magazine article about street racing in New York City. However, the studio initially wanted Timothy Olyphant for the role of Dominic Toretto. Can you imagine anyone other than Vin Diesel in that iconic role? When Olyphant passed, they turned to Diesel, who had gained recognition for his roles in Saving Private Ryan and Pitch Black. However, Diesel wasn't sold on the script. David Ayer rewrote it and transformed the story from a mostly white suburban tale set in New York to a diverse narrative set in the colorful streets of Los Angeles. This decision would prove crucial in shaping the franchise identity. Even the title went through multiple iterations. Redline, Race Wars, and Street Wars were all considered before they settled on The Fast and the Furious. They actually traded some stock footage to Roger Corman for the rights to use this title from his 1954 B-movie. The film was a surprise hit, grossing $207 million worldwide on a $38 million budget. Little did anyone know that this was just the starting line for a franchise that would eventually become a global phenomenon. Part 2. The Stumbling Sequels. Vin Diesel, believing that sequels often taint the original, decided to pass on Too Fast, Too Furious. This left Paul Walker as the sole returning lead, joined by Tyrese Gibson and directed by John Singleton. While Too Fast, Too Furious was financially successful, it lacked the chemistry that made the first film special. The third installment, Tokyo Drift, took an even bigger risk by completely changing the setting and cast. The only connection to the previous films was a cameo by Vin Diesel at the end, a cameo he agreed to do in exchange for the rights to the Riddick franchise. At this point, the franchise seemed to be running on fumes, pun intended. Each film felt disconnected from the last, lacking a cohesive narrative thread. The family aspect that would later become the heart of the series was nowhere to be found. It seemed like the Fast and the Furious might be heading for the scrapyard. But sometimes when you're going in reverse, you need to shift gears, and that's exactly what the franchise did next. Part 3. The Comeback. Fast and Furious 2009. 2009's Fast and Furious brought back the original cast: Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, Michelle Rodriguez, and Jordana Brewster all returned, reuniting the family that started it all. This fourth installment marked a turning point. The franchise began to evolve into something bigger. The stakes were higher, the action more intense, and most importantly, the theme of family started to take center stage.
It's a stealth mission. We'll be in and out before they even know we were there.
But the real game changer was yet to come. In 2011, Fast 5 hit theaters, and suddenly, Fast and Furious wasn't just a racing franchise, it was a heist movie. The addition of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Luke Hobbs injected new energy into the series, and the shift towards over-the-top action sequences opened up a world of possibilities. Fast 5 grossed over $626 million worldwide, more than doubling the box office of its predecessor. The franchise had found its nitrous oxide, and it was about to explode. Part 4. The Peak. Fast and Furious 6, and Furious 7. With the franchise now firing on all cylinders, Fast and Furious 6 continued the upward trajectory. The film brought back fan favorite Han Sung-hang and introduced a formidable villain in Owen Shaw, Luke Evans. It was bigger, louder, and more ambitious than ever before. But it was Furious 7 that would truly push the franchise to new heights and face its greatest challenge. Production on Furious 7 began with high hopes. James Wan, known for his work in the horror genre, took over directing duties. The cast was expanding, with Jason Statham joining as vengeful Deckard Shaw. Everything was set for another blockbuster entry. Then tragedy struck. On November 30th, 2013, with filming only about halfway complete, Paul Walker was involved in a fatal car accident. The world was shocked, but for the Fast and Furious family, it was a personal loss that shook them to the core. Production halted immediately. The future of the film and the franchise was suddenly uncertain. How could they continue without Brian O'Connor, one of the pillars of the series? After much deliberation, the decision was made to finish the film as tribute to Walker. But this meant major rewrites and an unprecedented challenge: how to complete Walker's scenes and give his character a fitting send-off. The solution involved a combination of CGI, body doubles, including Walker's brothers, Caleb and Cody, and unused footage from previous films. The result was a bittersweet triumph. Furious 7 became a touching tribute to Walker, culminating in an emotional farewell scene that left audiences in tears. The film grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing entry in the franchise and one of the highest-grossing films of all time. But the success was overshadowed by the loss. The Fast and Furious family has lost one of its own, and the franchise would never be the same. Part 5: The original plans for Furious 7. While Furious 7 as we know it became a poignant farewell to Paul Walker, the original plans for the film and the franchise future were quite different. According to screenwriter Chris Morgan, the original ending of Furious 7 was meant to set up a future adventure for the entire crew, including Brian O'Connor. The film would have ended with the team becoming more like outlaws, hinting at new heist or mission on the horizon. For Brian specifically, the original arc was centered around his struggling to balance his love for high-stakes action with his growing family responsibilities. It wasn't meant to be his exit from the franchise, but rather an exploration of his evolving role within the team. The original plans for Furious 7 even included a post-credit scene that would have set up a future villain team-up, akin to a Sinister Six of the Fast and Furious world. This rogues gallery would have brought together some of the most memorable antagonists from across the franchise. Imagine seeing Johnny Tran from the original film joining forces with Carter Verone from Too Fast, Too Furious, Arturo Braga from Fast and Furious, and Zizzy from the Rio Gang in Fast 5. The formidable Shaw brothers would have rounded out the team. Owen Shaw from Fast and Furious 6, and Deckard Shaw introduced in Furious 7. This villainous alliance would have posed an Avengers-level threat to Dom's crew, setting up an epic confrontation from future installments. Additionally, there were plans to dive deeper into Brian's backstory. Remember in Fast 5 when Brian mentions not knowing anything about his father? There were discussions about introducing Brian's father as a character, possibly even revealing that Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody was Brian's long-lost dad. All these plans had to be shelved or significantly altered after Walker's passing. The franchise had to reinvent itself once again, this time without one of its central stars. Part 6: The Aftermath. With the emotional farewell to Brian O'Connor in Furious 7, the franchise faced a crucial question. How do you continue without one of your lead characters? The answer came in the fate of the Furious, which took the bold step of turning Dom against his family. This shocking twist gave the franchise new dramatic territory to explore and helped fill the void left by Walker's absence. The film also leaned harder into the over-the-top action sequences that had become the series' trademark. The fate of the Furious pushed the boundaries of plausibility even further. But while the film was another box office success, grossing over $1.2 billion worldwide, some fans felt something was missing. The absence of Brian was keenly felt. Subsequent entries, including the spin-off Hobbs and Shaw and F9, have continued to expand the Fast and Furious universe, but with each new installment, the franchise seems to stray further from its roots. Part 7: What Went Wrong? So, What went wrong with the Fast and Furious franchise? The answer isn't simple because, in many ways, nothing went wrong at all. The franchise is still a global box office powerhouse with loyal fans worldwide. But if we look closer, we can identify a few key issues that have emerged over the years. What started as a simple story about street racers and undercover cops has evolved into globe-trotting spy thriller with superhuman feats. While this evolution has brought new fans, it's alienated some who love the original concept, leading to a loss of core identity. Each new film tries to outdo the last with bigger, more outrageous action sequences. As the cast has expanded, some characters have been sidelined or undergone jarring personality changes to fit the plot, creating a sense of character bloat. The absence of Paul Walker, while unavoidable, created a void that the franchise has struggled to fill. Brian and Dom's relationship was the heart of the series, and without that, something fundamental has changed. So what do you think? Has Fast and Furious lost its way, or is it better than ever? Is the franchise moved the focus away from cars and too much on family? Let us know in the comments below. Please hit the subscribe button for more movie insight videos coming to your feed. This video was made by movie fans for movie fans.